We are going to proceed today with the district's third witness. And Mr. Mulholland, would you like to call that person?
Yes, Judge. The board calls board member Carey.
Okay, Ms. Carey,
Yes,
I'm just looking. Are you on the,
I'm on the phone.
okay. Is there any way that we can see you while you testify?
No, not really. I don't have a working computer.
Okay. All right, we're going to proceed then. I'm going to ask that you raise your right hand and
Ray,
take the oath.
hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony is going to be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Ms. Carey, can you just confirm to me that you are testifying from a location where you are alone?
Yes, I am. My door is shut,
Okay.
closed tight.
And I will direct you to be testifying only from your recollection, to not make reference to any documents in front of you. If you don't remember something, just say you don't remember it, and counsel can help refresh your recollection. If you do not know something, then say you don't know it. If you're not sure, say you're not sure. Just listen carefully to the questions asked of you and answer them directly. And as you know from the other days, the nature of the questions from Mr. Mulholland may very well be different from the nature of the questions from Mr. Williams, but do respect the questions as they're asked and answer accordingly. Okay, Mr. Mulholland, whenever you're ready.
Yes. Good evening, Ms. Carey.
Good evening.
Could you please state your full name for the record?
Yes, it's Cora Lena Carey.
You are a member of the Greenburgh Central School District Board of Education.
Yes, I am.
Ms. Carey, for how long have you been a member of the board?
Total number of years, 9. Oh, going on 9.
I understand there was a break in service where you served for a period of years and then were not on the board and then got on the board again. Am I right about that?
Yes, you are.
How many years ago was your first term of service approximately?
I would say maybe about between 8 and 10 years ago.
Mr. Williams' temperament and demeanor during board meetings?
Yes, I have.
Would you describe, please, your observations concerning Mr. Williams' temperament during board meetings?
Well, I will start with when I first was elected to the board. My first 2 years, I was kind of like shocked to hear the discussions going on between Mr. Williams and other board members, especially Mr. Newland and Deborah Campbell. They were constantly having verbal discussions that were a little bit heated. But I guess I was mostly concerned about the fact that there was a lot of cursing going on between Mr. Williams at those he was angry with. Being the second eldest member on the board at that time.
Temperament and demeanor during board meetings?
Yes, I have.
Wait a second.
Hang on, Ms. Carey. Hang on one second. There was a disruption we have to address. Judge?
Is somebody recording this other than the reporter or the live stream? I'm not sure why we just heard Mr. Mulholland's question of a few minutes ago and the witness.
The box lit up for our tech person, so I don't know if he wants to.
Yeah, sorry, I had a little bit of internet hiccup going live, but we're live.
Okay. All right. Ms. Carey, you can continue if you remember the question and where you were.
I think I've kind of lost my train of thought there.
Well,
Okay,
all right. So I can continue with another question, Judge, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Carey, you mentioned that you observed cursing when Mr. Williams was engaging with other board members. You mentioned Mr. Newland and Ms. Campbell. Those were board members?
Yes, yes, both of them were board members at the time.
And when you said there was cursing, who was doing the cursing?
Mr. Williams liked to drop the F-bomb a lot during that time.
Was this during board meetings?
Yeah, it was mostly during closed session when we had discussions and we were talking about things.
Objection.
What's your objection? You have to object before the witness starts answering, but what's your objection?
Objection is the witness is talking about events that allegedly occurred in closed session, number one. And number two, the witness cannot know. That's the objection. That's the objection.
Mulholland, you want to be heard?
Yeah, I'm not asking for the substantive content of any executive session or any discussion, public or in executive session. I only am asking about the cursing that Ms. Carey has referenced, and I'm trying to understand the context in which it happened and who the speaker was.
Yes, I'll allow the question and the answer. You can continue, Ms. Carey.
Okay. And, being one of the elders in the room, and I've had my days years ago of using curse words also, but I just felt it was inappropriate to be used in that particular area. So I would say from time to time, Mr. Williams, I think I'm going to have to take you out to the woodshed. Doing that was not to embarrass him, but it was something that used to be said to us as youngsters, and it was like just to warn us that,
I missed that. Doing that, it was not to.
It was not to embarrass him.
That part I got.
it was not to embarrass him, but it was just to let him know that, in my opinion, it was inappropriate. And I tried to diffuse a situation that could have gotten even worse. But I will tell you this, after my second year, going into my third year, I had always thought that I had some sort of a kind of, relationship with Mr. Williams. We had our discussions, but I think we had more, calmer discussions. But after my going into my third year, I happened to disagree with Mr. Williams on a situation, and boy, he let into me like white on rice. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And at that point, I was finished. I would not talk to him about the woodshed, and I would not talk to him about trying to calm him down in any way. So I have seen him.
Ms. Carey, let me ask another question. In addition to observing Mr. Williams' temperament through his language and cursing, did you ever see him become physically aggressive during meetings in any way?
Oh, yeah, I saw him at one point. He threw his briefcase across the room at Mr. Newland, which scared several of our community members. And also, it was written up in the Journal News in a small article about him, losing his temper. And then I've also seen him, I saw him at one point throw his pen across, just slide his pen across the table that we were sitting on. And a couple of other things that I can't remember right now.
Yep. Ms. Carey, moving forward to the current last 1 or 2 years, how would you characterize Mr. Williams' demeanor and temperament during board meetings more currently?
Well, I've always thought that he was very disrespectful to women, especially, now. I have seen situations where Mr. Williams has been very, very, in my opinion, very disrespectful to the women on the board. And although I don't hear cursing like I did in the beginning, I do hear that same mean type of voice that makes us feel as if, you know, we are being so disrespected and not listened to because we can't agree with exactly what he would like us to agree with.
Ms. Carey, what, in your view, is the impact on board deliberations of Mr. Williams' demeanor and his temperament, as you've described it? What is the impact on the board deliberations?
Well, it's very, very hard because, in my opinion, we're supposed to be working on student activities, things that we can bring into our schools that are going to enhance the learning experiences of our children, the educational experiences of our children. We are so busy putting out all kinds of fires of every kind that we don't ever get a chance to really work on the things that we need to. And I find that very frustrating. I feel it very frustrating that we can't actually work on the betterment of our school district because we are so busy in conflict.
Ms. Carey, over the years, have you ever heard Mr. Williams express remorse for his conduct during board meetings, whether it's, let's take it one at a time, the cursing? Has he ever expressed remorse for cursing during board meetings, to your knowledge?
No.
Has he ever apologized to anyone for having used profanity during board meetings?
Not as far as I know.
How about the instances where he's shown physical aggression? Did you ever see Mr. Williams or hear him express remorse or apologize for those events?
No, I have not.
And more recently, you say he's been disrespectful toward women. Have you ever heard him apologize to anyone? And you're talking about female board members, by the way. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Have you ever heard Mr. Williams apologize promptly after offending a female board member with a comment?
No, I have not.
Judge, I have no other questions for Cora Carey.
Thank you. Cross-examination, Mr. Williams?
Yes, can I have 5 minutes, Judge?
Yes, you can. It's
Thank you.
6:22. We'll be back at 7.
Thank you.
Okay. We have everyone back? Yes. All right, Mr. Williams, cross-examination?
Yes, thank you. Mrs. Carey, let me start by asking you this. Can you explain what taking someone out to the woodshed means?
Yeah, it's a, how I understand it, it is when my family used to say to me, all right, girl, this is it. Don't let this happen again, or I'm going to have to take you out to the woodshed. But it was done with a lot of compassion and not really malice.
Yes or no? The woodshed, going out to the woodshed could result in physical violence.
I've never been out there, so I can't say that.
So you did threaten to take me out to the woodshed.
No, I just suggested that we go.
Yes or no? You threatened to take me out to the woodshed because you disagreed with some of the positions that I took on the issues we discussed.
No, I said I was going to take
Yes
you
or
out to the
no?
woodshed.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
Okay.
No.
Your answer is no.
Yes or no? Wouldn't making a threat to take someone out to the woodshed be a violation of the board norms number 1 and number 11?
If they were threatened,
Yes or no?
no.
Okay. Yes or no? You said in your testimony that I use profanity during meetings.
hmm
Yes or no? Have you used profanity during meetings?
I think I have once
Yes
or
or
twice.
no?
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you. To whom specifically did I direct profanity to?
Yes or no?
No, just the name, please.
Oh, Mr. Newland, and I heard you do the same for Deborah Brown. And I also heard you do that with David.
Yes or no? Did Lloyd Newland and I have arguments?
Yes?
Yes or no? Did I ever enter a meeting and just say to Lloyd, F-bomb?
I don't know.
You just testified that I used profanity at him.
But you
Now
asked
you
me
don't
if
know?
you asked me if you ever walked in a meeting, and I heard that. I said, I don't know. Maybe you have, maybe you didn't. I wasn't listening.
Yes or no? When, not yes or no, when specifically did I use profanity at Lloyd, direct profanity at Lloyd Newland?
When you were angry with him.
No, what date?
Oh, I'm not even going to go there. I don't remember.
Okay, just say you don't remember. So you have no proof that I directed any profanity at Lloyd.
Objection.
Only if you ask him.
There's an objection basis, Mr. Mulholland.
Well, I think it's a misleading question. And what is proof is in part a legal question. Ms. Carey's testimony thus far under oath is proof.
Yeah.
And so a fair question might be, is there any other proof beyond the spoken testimony that's already been presented? That would be a fair and non-misleading question. But the way it's framed, it's misleading.
Right. So, Mr. Williams, just rephrase your question, please.
On how many occasions did you hear me direct profanity at Lloyd Newland?
Mr. Williams, if I tried to count it, we'd be here all night.
Yes or no, did Lloyd Newland direct profanity at me?
Yes,
Yes or no, did he direct profanity at me first?
no,
Yes, how do you know that since you can't recall what happened?
I didn't say I couldn't recall what happened. I said I
I'm
couldn't
sorry.
give you the time.
Withdrawing the question. So tell us, Ms. Carey, the particular episode, recall for us, if you will, the particular conversation that in which Lloyd and I directed profanity at one another.
Well, there were so many times, Mr. Williams, I don't know which one you want me to tell them about.
Just one. Just give us one. What was the nature of the discussion and what led to the exchange in profanities?
Oh, I'm not going to go in. That would take a lot of time. I can't go into that right now.
I just asked for one. We do. Time is limited. Just give us one.
Okay, you and Mr. Newton got into a confrontation about the buildings, something about the buildings. Okay, I think it was either Highview or Richard J. Bailey, and the two of you got into a discussion about it. It got heated. You got mad at Mr. Newland. You started using profanity to him. He did it back to you, and then you invited him out to the parking lot.
And what was the nature? So you said we got into a discussion about the buildings. What were we saying about the buildings?
I don't remember.
So if you don't remember what we were saying about the buildings, how can you remember that we were exchanging profanities and I allegedly invited him to the parking lot?
Judge, argumentative.
Yes, it is argumentative. That's the point you could make, Mr. Williams, in your closing argument.
So you don't remember, Ms. Carey, the particulars of the conversation?
That's been
Yes or
asked,
no?
that's been asked and answered.
Okay. Yes or no? You mentioned that I allegedly threw a notebook during a meeting.
I don't think I
No,
heard.
I didn't say a notebook. I said a briefcase.
A briefcase, I'm sorry. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no? You said the Journal News wrote about it in an article.
Yeah, it was a little small article they wrote.
It was just yes or no, just yes or no. Will do, thank you.
Yes.
What was the date of that article?
You tickle me, man. I don't know the date of it.
Okay, so you don't know if they wrote an article because you can't recall the date. Who was the writer?
Oh, wait a second,
Objection.
Mr. Williams, that wasn't her testimony. She
Okay.
testified that there wasn't an article, but she doesn't know the date.
Who was the writer of that article?
I'm sure if I had time to look it up, I could ask Ivy to help me find it.
Did the alleged article say I pushed some papers off of the desk or I tossed my briefcase?
You know what? I don't remember what the words were in the article. I do remember they did say you lost your temper. Now, I do remember that.
So which is it?
But
Did the article say I tossed? I just want to get clarification here. So did the article say, excuse me, let me just ask the question. Did the article say that I tossed my briefcase or I lost my temper?
It said it may have said both of them, but I just remember down at the bottom where it said it lost your temper. You lost your temper, but it could have said both. Don't remember. It's been about 10 years.
You don't remember the article, but you just said such an article existed.
Okay,
Which
that's
is it?
argumentative. No, Mr. Williams, it's argumentative. The witness's
Okay.
testimony is what it is.
Okay. You said that yes or no, you said I'm particularly disrespectful to women.
Yes, you are, Mr. Williams. Yes, you are.
What comments did I make specifically about female board members?
Mr. Williams, I am not going into that because number one, I cannot say verbatim what you said, and I'm not going to put myself in a position to put words in your mouth. So I will not be able to answer that.
Okay, thank you. When did I make those comments to my female colleagues?
Mr. Williams, you made those comments just about every time we had a work session. And sometimes when we had public sessions.
Yet you cannot say what I said.
I will not put words in your mouth. I will not let you put words in mine. No.
Okay. Have our yes or no, have our disagreements ever been about anything personal?
No.
Yes or no, have our disagreements always been about school board matters?
No.
Well, if it's not school board matters, it's then personal.
Objection, argumentative.
Wait a second, Mr. Williams, no, that's,
Okay,
ask another question.
sure. Yes or no, haven't you attacked other board members and staff during meetings?
Yes.
Yes or no, has the president ever asked you to stop?
Yes.
Yes or no, do you in fact interrupt me during meetings?
That's because I don't see your hand up.
Yes or no?
Objection, asked and answered, Judge.
No, I'll allow her to answer yes or no.
Mrs. Carey?
But
The question,
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Judge.
the question is, have you interrupted him at board meetings?
I think I answered that. Yes, I do. I have interrupted him at board meeting.
And you said because you can't see my hand is up.
Sometimes I interrupt because I don't know that your hand is up, and the president will say, Ms. Carey, will you just hold on? Wait a minute. Mr. Williams has his hand up. I said, okay.
Yes or no, when we were meeting in before the pandemic, you would interrupt me during times when I was speaking.
Only when I felt that you were being very disrespectful and hateful.
It was just yes or no. It was just a yes or no question, Ms. Carey.
Oh, yes. Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you, this is the third time we've had this trial, I believe, right? Is this the third occasion or the fourth now?
This is the fourth.
Fourth, I'm sorry. Thank you for that, Judge. Ms. Carey, yes or no, did you see were you able to see the video that I played during the second day of my trial? Yes or no? Yes or no, were you able to hear it?
Yes.
Yes or no, did you hear the part where you interrupted me when I was speaking and called me childish?
Mr. Williams, I did not call you childish.
Yes or no, yes or no? Yes or no?
No, I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say any. I'm going to tell you I didn't. I don't know why
Judge,
they think
I asked yes or no.
I'm going to direct the witness to just listen, and Mr. Mulholland will have an opportunity to ask you questions that are more open-ended and allow you to explain, but you need to answer Mr. Williams's questions directly. So I guess the question is, did you call him childish?
No.
Yes or no, I responded to a comment that you made at that meeting. Ms. Carey?
I'm hearing you. It wasn't what I said. It was a conglomeration of a discussion.
Yes or no, Ms. Carey?
What's the question, Mr. Williams?
The question was, yes or no, did I respond to your comment to me during that meeting?
No.
Yes or no, did I respond to your comment about childish?
I don't remember that.
Yes or no? Did I say to you in words in effect, go back and watch TV?
Yes, you did.
Yes or no? Is that a gender specific comment?
Judge,
Mr. Williams, you have your
Judge,
opinion.
objection. I'm not, this is beyond the scope of direct. There are lots of things that have been said by Mr. Williams that are not gender specific or derogatory towards women. And I think the question is misleading. He could
Judge,
pull
she
out-
said
he could
earlier that,
question, excuse
I'm
me,
sorry.
Just a minute.
Judge, he could question Ms. Carey about all manner of things that have been said by himself, and then ask her to agree or admit that those are not gender specific comments. It's a misleading and unfair line of questions.
Mr.
Judge,
Williams.
may I respond?
Yes.
Thank you. Judge, the witness testified that that I am particularly verbally abusive to women. So I'm just trying to get on the record. What comment have I ever made to her that is abusive to women?
Okay, I think Mr. Mulholland's objection is to the questioning of is a particular comment disrespectful to women. You are correct that this was addressed on direct, so I will allow you to address it on cross. But rather than go through a litany of comments that could or could not be interpreted by the witness to be disrespectful to women, why don't you focus in on the basis for her testimony that you are disrespectful to women?
And Judge,
Sure.
I could, just one further objection. Ms.
Yes.
Carey is a woman, and this is why the question is misleading. And an offensive comment towards Ms. Carey, regardless of what it is offensive to a woman. And this, it supports her testimony. And for him to ask a question that it's misleading. As I said, Judge, it's a misleading line of questions. I think it's unfair to Ms. Carey, who has to joust with him and understand the unfairness while she's trying to answer it.
Well, I do believe that on cross-examination, Mr. Williams has an opportunity to delve into the witness's testimony that he is disrespectful to women, because I'm not sure that has been established as to the basis for why she's testifying to that, as opposed to making the conclusory statement. So I will give him a little bit of leeway.
Thank you. So I don't recall if Ms. Carey was able to answer that question.
Well, why don't you just ask another question? Or the same one?
Yeah, okay. Was my comment to you to go back and watch TV a gender specific comment? Yes or no?
Mr. Williams, Mr. Mulholland's whole objection is based on the fact that if you're going to go through and ask the witness the pretty obvious question, yes or no, as to whether a comment to go back and watch TV was gender specific or any other specific comments were gender specific, then that's not an appropriate line of questioning. What you can do is ask the witness the basis upon which she made the conclusion that you have made disrespectful comments to women.
Maybe I'm confused, Judge. I thought you overruled his objection.
Well, I said, yes, I overruled his objection to the extent that I am allowing you to delve into the basis for her belief that you are disrespectful to women. That is different than asking a question as to whether or not a comment about telling her to go watch TV is gender offensive. So you can delve into the reason she believes you've made disrespectful comments about women.
Okay. Isn't it true, Ms. Carey, yes or no, that you watch television during board meetings?
Excuse me?
Yes or no, isn't it true that you watch television during board meetings since we've been in the pandemic?
Of course I do.
Isn't it true that you once said you were watching a print special and that you could not answer a question because of that?
No.
But you admit to watching TV during meetings.
That's been asked and answered, Mr. Williams.
Yes or no? If you watch television during a meeting, is it disrespectful for me to bring it up to you?
Yes. because you have other things to do
Yes or
besides
no?
worry.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
She said yes.
Yes or no? Isn't it a violation of board norm to not pay attention during board meetings?
Have you ever known me not to pay attention?
Yes or no?
I don't know.
Yes or no? Our board norms ask us not to use other electronic devices. Ms. Carey?
Will you please let me think about this, because you
Oh,
put
sure,
words in my
sorry,
mouth.
sorry. I'm sorry. I
I never
didn't know if
I
you
never-
heard, sorry.
I never saw in our
This was a yes or no question, though, Judge. This was a
Yes.
yes or no
Would
question.
the reporter read back the question, please?
No.
Just read back the question, please.
Yes or no, are board norms ask us not to use other electronic devices, Ms. Carey? Yes or no, are board norms ask us not to use other electronic devices?
I don't know.
Yes or no, a television is an electronic device.
Okay, Mr. Williams, I'm going to interrupt you because cross-examination is limited by the scope of direct. And again,
Sure.
once you are representing yourself, I've given you a little bit of latitude, even over Mr. Mulholland's objections. But we've said in the past, Mr. Mulholland has said, and I've instructed you, that no other board member is on trial here. So you need to focus on addressing the specific points that are relative to your behavior. You can make whatever arguments you want at the end, but we're not going to talk about other board member misconduct as you might allege. And also, again, Mr. Mulholland's examination was relatively brief and you are confined by that. So I'm going to start entertaining objections if you're going beyond the scope.
Sure, thank you. Yes or no, Ms. Carey, did I ever serve as president when you were on the board?
Yes.
Yes or no, did you vote for me for president?
No.
Yes or no, did you ever commend me for my support of pre-K education?
Yes.
Section,
Basis.
Judge, I don't know what that has to do with the direct examination that was conducted.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Allegation
Oh,
that
wait.
there's been no allegation that in his 18 years on the board, Mr. Williams has not done things that are positive and good. This is not, it is not my burden to establish, nor have I tried to establish that he's done nothing positive in his 18 years.
May I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, so your Judge, it's not my intention to have a litany of my achievements over the 18 years, just to counter the testimony from Ms. Carey that that characterized me as not a good board member. I was limiting it to that question. The question was asked and answered, and counsel objected after the answer.
Okay, counsel did object after the answer, but probably because I think you were saying yes or no. Mr. Williams, I'm just going to remind you of the scope of direct. There was testimony as to your temperament and demeanor. There was testimony as to alleged cursing. There was testimony as to interaction with Mr. Newland, the briefcase incident, the taking you out to the shed testimony. There was testimony about you being disrespectful to women and the impact of your behavior or conduct on board deliberations. That was the sum and substance of the scope of the testimony offered by Mr. Mulholland. So whatever remaining questions you have, please make sure are within that.
Thank you. Ms. Carey, yes or no? Did I Yes or no? My alleged disrespectful comments to women, were they often in response to a discussion that we were having in the board meeting?
Yes.
Yes or no? Did I make disrespectful comments to men as well?
Yes.
Yes or no? So I didn't target women in my comments.
That's not my opinion.
Just yes or no?
Repeat the question.
Yes or no? Did I target women with my comments?
Yes.
I'm sorry. No, I'm going to have the transcriber read the question back first.
Read back the question, please.
Yes or no? Did I make disrespectful comments to men as well? Answer yes. Question, yes or no? So I didn't target women in my comments. Answer, that's not my opinion. Question is just yes or no. Answer, repeat the question.
Judge, she answered it. She said, no, that's not my opinion.
She answered the question, Mr. Williams.
Okay. Yes or no, Ms. Carey, not to be repetitive, but I just want to remind you of something. Yes or no? You said earlier, we can't work for the district because we are putting out fires.
Is there a question?
I just want to make sure there's a question, but I just want to set the stage for her question.
Well, I object.
For my question.
The transcript is the transcript.
Yes.
I object.
Mr. Williams.
Okay, all right. Yes or no, Ms. Carey, isn't it true that we can't get district work done because you are always bringing up anonymous calls and letters that you receive?
No.
Yes or no? Isn't it true that this gets us sidetracked?
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
Yes or no? Isn't it true that the letters and calls that you bring to us, letters and calls that you receive, that you bring to us, doesn't that get us sidetracked?
No.
Okay. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see if I have any other questions. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Mulholland?
Nothing on redirect, Judge.
Okay, thank you. The witness is done. Thank you for your testimony. Any additional witnesses?
Yes, Judge. The board calls Board Member Ashley Pineda.
Mr. Pineda, would you please raise your right hand? Let me just get you on the screen here. There you go. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You've heard my instructions to other witnesses about how to answer the questions, so please comply with those. And Mr. Mulholland, whenever you're ready.
Pineda, please state your full name for the record.
Ashley Pineda.
You're a member of the Greenburgh Central School District Board of Education.
Yes, I am.
For how long have you been on the board?
I've been on the board for about 2 years.
Mr. Pineda, during your time on the board, have you observed Mr. Williams, heard Mr. Williams demeaning comments toward any of your female board colleagues?
Yes, I have.
Could you give us an example of a demeaning comment you've heard him make towards a female board member?
Yes, I've heard the names Crybaby, Karen, Loser. Those are 3 that come to mind.
What time frame have these comments been made towards? Well, you've been on the board for 2 years. Can you be more specific within the last 2 years when you've heard these things?
Yeah, those 3 in particular happened within the last year.
Were these during public sessions or executive sessions of the board?
I don't recall 100% on that one. I think I've seen them in both, but I don't want to say conclusively one way or the other.
Okay. Do these comments, in your view, reflect any gender stereotypes?
I feel they do.
In what way, Mr. Pineda?
Well, I feel that calling someone, particularly a female member of the board, a loser, a crybaby, a Karen, I think those are terms that, in my opinion, are damaging. And I think they're damaging. I think they're offensive. I've never taken a Gallup poll or any kind of survey or anything like that, but I do know I have spoken with some constituents that have brought concerns to me that they have told me that they feel offended by those comments, that they feel hurt. I also think to myself sometimes when I hear these things, what must be the thought that our students, our female students in particular, how must they feel seeing a board trustee that is a female being called these names? And actually, that just reminded me, I do recall hearing those names being called in public open session. And with that said, a few board meetings ago, we actually had 3 of our students from our student body council come on and do a presentation about some things they'd like to see change with the student body and the board interaction. And it was a great presentation. And I can only imagine if these students are sitting here tuning into our meetings, hearing these things, how they must feel. And I have no explanation. I don't see how anyone could feel that wouldn't be offensive.
Mr. Pineda, in your time on the board, have you ever heard Mr. Williams express remorse for these sorts of offensive comments directed towards a female member of the board?
I haven't heard any sort of remorse. I have never heard any remorse, any apologies.
In words or substance.
I think that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue. I'm sorry.
I think that. I guess I put myself in. I try to put myself in the position of others, and I say to myself, if someone had come to me with the concern and told me that I made them feel any particular way, just as a person, I feel personally, I would feel the need to apologize to them, even if I hadn't intended doing, or I had the opinion that I hadn't done these things. I would still feel the need as a person to apologize and to make amends, not only to our community, but also to my coworkers, my colleagues, my board members, trustees that are my peers. I don't see how not apologizing could be beneficial to our district at all. I don't see how that could help.
And I take it you've never seen Mr. Williams apologize for any of these things that you've heard him say.
I have not.
what do you believe is the impact on the quality of board deliberations when Mr. Williams engages in these sorts of behaviors during meetings, public or private?
Well, I know for a fact, I can speak for myself when I say this. There have been plenty of times that our deliberations or our conversations have gone on for so long that basically many times I've opted to push my conversations or my topics to another meeting. We don't even get to the stuff that I've wanted to raise, or there's been documented instances where we're in new business and I want to raise something, and then I look at the time and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to raise something to talk about then, and we push it off to another meeting. I also feel that when we're having our deliberations, you know, you can only be, I'll speak for myself, I can only be so rational for so long. If it's 1 o'clock in the morning, at that point, my head's not thinking straight anymore, trying to make these decisions. These are very difficult decisions that we have to make every single meeting. And, you know, it's really not in the best interest of our district to be up that late, having those meetings, having those discussions that have been belabored and gone on and on and on because of the conflict, to make the right decisions.
Mr. Pineda, just last question. I think implied in your answer just then was a connection that I'd like you to explain. Is there a connection between Mr. Williams' demeanor and his behaviors you've been describing and that other witnesses have described and the length of meetings? You brought up the length of the meeting just now in your answer, so I'm trying to understand what's the connection, if there is one. Could you explain that, please?
Sure. Absolutely. So there definitely is a connection. I'll put it this way. If we spend half an hour arguing back and forth about whether someone offended someone else, and we can't get past the point because someone's monopolizing the time of the agenda, that means that every other piece of the agenda has not been covered yet. And we still have our agenda we have to go through. So all that does is put us back, let's say half an hour in that example, right? And it just compounds. And by the time you realize it, it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you, Mr. Pineda. Judge, I have no further questions from Mr. Pineda.
Mr. Williams?
5 minutes, please, Judge.
Yes, we'll be
Thank
back at 7:45.
Judge, would you mind 10 minutes? I just want to take care of something.
Okay, fine. We'll be back at 7:50.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, everybody's back? No, Mr. Williams, we're waiting. Okay, back on the record. Cross-examination, Mr. Williams, and I'm just going to remind you to confine yourself to the scope of direct.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ashley, just want to get some clarity here. During your testimony, you mentioned that you wondered how students must feel about some of the alleged comments that I made. Yes.
Ask your question.
Sure. So, yes or no? Were these not yes or no? These are three names that you said that I uttered. Did they occur in closed session or open session?
I recall them happening during open session.
Do you recall the dates?
No, I recall they were in the last few months, but I did not go and try to figure out what dates they were.
You didn't go back to, we've had taped meetings. Well, we've had taped meetings for years now. You don't know the date.
Asked and answered, Judge.
Sustained.
Yes or no, would it surprise you if these comments were not made in open session?
Yes.
So how would the students know if they were in closed session? How would the students know about these comments?
Objection, argumentative,
Yeah.
facts not in evidence.
Yes, Mr. Williams. The witness has testified that he believed it was made during open session.
Okay, thank you. Yes or no, were these comments made, I'm sorry, not yes or no, were these comments made in this calendar year?
Yes.
Okay. Yes or no, Ashley, have I ever called you anything but Ashley or Mr. Pineda or Trustee Pineda?
No.
Yes or no, have I called David anything else other than David or Trustee Warner?
I don't know.
Yes or no, have I called Miss Carey anything other than Cora, Miss Carey, or Trustee Carey?
I don't recall.
Yes or no, have I called Antoinette anything other than Antoinette or Madam President or President Darden Cintron?
Yes.
What names have I called her?
You've said she's a bad president. You said she doesn't know how to run a meeting.
Excuse me, those are not names. I didn't ask you. for my opinions of her. I asked you, what names have I called her?
That's how I define it.
So let me rephrase the question. Did I call her Madam Bad President? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Trying to think off the top of my head. I asked you, yes or no? What names have I called Miss Drogic other than Miss Drogic, Tanya Drogic, Trustee Drogic, Tanya?
I don't recall any.
What names have I called Tracy Mayers?
Crybaby, loser, Karen, to name a few.
What other names have I called her other than these three names and Tracy or Trustee Mayers or Vice President Mayers?
You've called her stupid.
Why didn't you say that earlier?
It's argumentative.
Objection. Or
Are there any other names that I called her? Are you remembering any other names now?
Those are the only ones I recall.
Okay. So, yes or no, do you know what a Karen is?
Yes.
Yes or no, is a Karen a woman, usually a white woman, who accuses Black people, falsely accuses Black people of doing illegal things?
No.
Tell us what a Karen is.
My understanding of a Karen is a woman that is complains about everything, that there's usually a racial tone to that conversation. It's not necessarily complaining about a Black individual.
Yes or no, are you familiar with a woman named Amy Cooper?
No.
Okay. Yes or no, are you familiar with the situation that occurred in Central Park last summer?
objection, Judge.
Yes, Mr. Williams, this is way beyond.
I got it. Just duly noted, duly noted. Yes or no? Yes or no? Did I call Tracy Mayers a Karen because she accused me of bullying her?
I don't recall.
You don't recall? Yes or no? So then how do you recall that I called her a Karen?
Because I remember you saying it.
Yes or no? Did I just out of the blue during a meeting, instead of calling her Tracy, I called her Karen?
No, I didn't say that.
How did I call her Karen? What was the situation of me calling her Karen?
There was a discussion and you disagreed with whatever it is that she said, and then you call her a Karen. Now, whether it was a back and forth or not, specifically, if she said something to you, I don't recall that detail, but I remember you call her a Karen.
Yes or no? You, myself, and Tracy Mayers were on the Government Relations and Governance Committee together this year.
No, we were only on the governance committee.
Yes or no? Tracy Mayers, myself, and you were on the Government Relations Committee the previous year.
Yes.
Yes or no? Did we have robust conversations during those meetings?
Yes.
Yes or no? Did I call Tracy any names other than Tracy, Miss Mayers, Trustee Mayers?
No.
Yes or no? Did we ever have a disagreement during those meetings?
Yes.
But those meetings never devolved into name calling.
That's been asked and answered.
No.
Yes or no? Did I serve as chairman of one of those committees at any time?
Yes.
Yes or no? Did those meetings move expeditiously?
Yes.
Yes or no? Did you have an opportunity to share your thoughts during those meetings?
Yes.
Yes or no? Does the president manage the regular school board meeting?
Yes.
Is the president responsible for managing that meeting?
Yes.
So if the board meetings go on longer than necessary, isn't it the responsibility of the president to keep it on track?
Is that a yes or no question?
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no, Ashley? Am I the board member who most often uses the electronic hand raising feature to get noticed?
Yes.
Yes or no, Ashley? Do I typically interrupt my colleagues during meetings?
Sometimes.
Yes or no? Does Tracy Mears interrupt more often than anybody else?
Sometimes.
Yes, that was a yes or no question.
I don't believe I can answer that with a yes or no answer.
Yes or no, does
My dogs.
yes or no, does Carey interrupt the meetings often?
Sometimes.
Yes or no, does President Darden Cintron ask them to stop interrupting?
Yes.
Yes or no, does she ask me to stop interrupting?
Yes, many times.
But who interrupts more often?
I've never sat down and tallied it, Mr. Williams.
Bear with me 1 second, Judge. Yes or no, Ashley, did you say that, Judge, can I have, would it be possible to have the court reporter read back some of his testimony?
Mr. Mulholland, do you have a position on that?
I object to the waste of time. The testimony is in the transcript. If Mr. Williams wants to ask a question, he can do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's good enough. Yes or no, Ashley, is Karen a racial term?
I said yes.
That's been asked and answered, Mr. Williams.
Well, that's why I was asking. I didn't recall. I thought he recalled. That's why I was asking about the transcript.
He just answered you earlier on cross-examination.
That wasn't on cross-examination. That was on Mr. Mulholland's examination.
That's not true, Mr. Williams.
Okay, I stand corrected. How is Karen behavior racial?
You said earlier it's typically classifying a white woman. If that's not racial, I don't know what is.
I'm not asking what you said I said. I'm asking you, how is it racial? You said it was racial.
Judge, argument.
How is it racial?
Yes, this is argumentative. Ask another question, Mr. Williams.
Judge, he said it was racial. So I just want to ask him how it is racial.
Mr. Williams, first of all, you're arguing with him. You're not just asking him.
I wasn't arguing with him. He was just telling me what I said.
Okay, ask ask a question and we'll see if it's appropriate.
Is displaying, is accusing a man of bullying harmful to a man? Let me rephrase, please. Is it harmful to a man to be accused by a woman of bullying? Yes or no?
I can't answer yes or no fashion.
In your previous testimony, you said that I never apologized for my language. Yes or no?
I said I was never aware of you doing that.
So you don't know if I ever apologized? Yes or no?
I said not to my knowledge were my exact words.
Okay. Yes or no? You don't know if Tracy Mears or any other board member came to me and asked me to apologize?
Correct. I'm not with you to know that.
Yes or no? You never suggested to me that I apologize to anyone.
I can't answer that in yes or no fashion. If you'd like me to expand, I can.
No, it's just yes or no. I think you can, but you choose not to. That's fine.
Okay, strike that
Objection.
comment as argumentative.
No other questions.
Redirect?
None, Judge.
Thank you. You're done, Mr. Pineda. Any further witnesses, Mr. Mulholland?
Yes, Judge. The board calls trustee David Warner.
Let me get him on my screen. Okay, Mr. Warner? Let him get situated. Okay, Mr. Warner, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth? You're on mute.
I do.
Okay, thank you. And you've heard my instructions to the other witnesses. So please just listen carefully to the questions asked and respond accordingly, okay? Whenever you're ready, Mr. Mulholland.
Good evening, Mr. Warner.
Good evening.
Could you state your full name for the record, please?
David Lee Warner.
You're a member of the Greenburgh Central School District Board of Education.
Yes,
For how many years have you been on the board?
14.
You served as president for a period of time, correct?
Correct.
How many years were you the president?
3.
Do you recall what what years were spanned by those, the 3 years?
Probably 17, 18, 19.
Do you recall that in March of 2019, the board proposed a bond referendum for the community's consideration?
Yes,
And the bond referendum failed, right? It was defeated at the polls?
correct. The actual vote was a little later than March, but yeah, we put it up in March.
Okay, thank you. Do you recall a board meeting in April of 2019 after the referendum had failed, held at the mansion?
I think you're trying to refer to something that happened prior to the bond vote,
Ah,
a
okay.
couple of weeks prior to the bond vote.
Thank you for clarifying that for me. Do you recall a board meeting at the mansion in April of 2019?
Yes.
And for the judge's benefit, could you explain what the mansion is?
The mansion was the house that the Warburg family lived in, and it later became our administration building. We had a boardroom, and we would switch off between having full-fledged meetings at the high school and having our work sessions at the board meeting in the mansion.
Thank you. Do you recall Mr. Williams expressing some dissatisfaction with the way the referendum was being handled at the April meeting of the board at the mansion in 2019?
Yes,
And if I said that this meeting was on April 2, 2019, would that fit?
that's
with
about
your
right.
memory? Do you recall Mr. Williams speaking to you about this, about his concerns with your handling of the referendum after the meeting outside in the parking lot?
Yes,
And was there an argument between Mr. Williams and yourself in the parking lot?
there was a discussion.
Okay. Did something happen involving Mr. Williams and his car and yourself that evening in the parking lot?
Yes.
Could you tell the judge what happened, please?
So, Mr. Williams was critical of a couple of issues that I brought up in the meeting, having to do with sidewalks and the necessary transportation, the necessary expenses beyond the scope of the bond. And I had, in addition, been invited to a meeting with Andrea Stewart Cousins and other members of the community and other members of the administration of the local government had also shown up at the meeting. And there was a sort of a zero-sum game going on there, thinking that that perhaps any possibility of state aid that would go to the school district and possibly make the bond more palatable to the public would be diluted by other people's need for the money. And he was very concerned with that. And he, at some point, he did do some cursing, and then he said, "I'm leaving. Get out of my way, or I'm going to back my car over you."
So at that point in time, was Mr. Williams in his car?
He was not.
So were the two of you standing in the parking lot?
The three of us were standing in the parking lot.
And just for the record, who's the third person?
Jeff Barnes,
Another board member?
at the time, yes.
Did Mr. Williams say this in a joking fashion?
No, I think he does not get along well with the couple of other people who showed up at Andrea Stewart Cousins' meeting, and I think we pushed just about every button on that he has to be pushed. So he was warning us to get out of his way because he was so mad he probably couldn't handle himself very well, and so we got out of the way. The other guy said, "Things just got real." I said, "You could have a good evening now." And we both stepped out of the way. We all got in our cars and drove away.
Okay. When you said the other guy said things just got real, that was Jeff Barnes, the other board member?
That was Jeff Barnes.
Did Mr. Williams ever say to you after this in words or substance that he knew what he did was inappropriate when he?
Yes, he called me the next morning and apologized.
Okay. Judge, I have no further questions for Mr. Warner.
Okay, cross-examination.
Yes, at the, David, what was the date? What date did I allegedly threaten to run you over with my car?
I think it's 4-2 or 4-3. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning at that point. So it might have kicked over from 4-3. You can go back and check the date of the work session. It will be right after it.
Yes or no, at the following meeting, did Trustee Barnes bring up the incident in the parking lot to the rest of the board?
No,
Yes or no, did Trustee Barnes ask what responsibility did he have to report something that he saw?
I do not recall.
You do not recall. Yes or no, David? Were you standing behind my car when we were having a discussion?
Yes,
Yes or no? Could my comments have been, is it possible that my comment was, get out of the way so I don't hit you with my car?
yes,
So yes or no, it could have been that I was concerned about your safety.
yes,
Yes or no? So it wasn't a threat.
Objection, argumentative.
Well,
Your Honor, that is not argumentative.
Mr. Williams, I'm letting the witness answer the question.
it may not have been a threat.
No further questions.
Anything, Mr. Holland?
Nothing else, Judge.
Thank you. You're done, Mr. Warner. Any other witnesses?
No, Judge, the board has no further witnesses.
Okay, you then rest subject to rebuttal?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Mr. Williams, that then means that we move to you. Are you prepared to go forward with your case tonight?
I am not. One of my witnesses is Adam Kleinberg, and I didn't want to encumber him again, so I have not reached out to him.
Okay. Are you planning on testifying on your own behalf?
I haven't decided that yet.
Okay. All right. And do you know at this point in time how many witnesses you're planning on having?
I'm only having two witnesses, Your Honor, Mr. Kleinberg and Mr. Warner.
Mr. Warner, you're calling him as your own witness?
Yes.
Okay. Are you prepared to proceed with his examination?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So it would appear then that we can't go any further this evening. We have another day scheduled, which is the 17th, commencing at 6 p.m. So, Mr. Williams, it is expected that then you'll be prepared to present as many witnesses of those two and yourself, if you decide to testify, as we can cover in that evening.
Okay.
And you should expect we'll go till at least 10 o'clock and, plan accordingly.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything that anything else you or Mr. Mulholland need to raise? Mr.
No,
Mulholland, anything?
No, Judge.
Okay, then we are going to end for the evening. And we will reconvene on the 17th at 6 p.m. and we'll proceed with Mr. Williams's case. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good,
you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
good night.
Thanks. Good night.